lose in a game. So
Yeah, but that's when they had Irving and Sleepy Floyd.
yeah.
So would everyone be okay if I recorded the meeting?
Yes. I'm going to call the meeting to order right now. Okay. And
recording in progress.
And I'll do the transcripts.
Very good. All right, so we'll have the attendance. So Michael Coltman. Saw Michael there. Oh, okay. Michael raised his
Hang on,
hand.
I'm here. I just have to figure out how to.
Okay. John Sasto.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Mark Doxer.
Here.
Nora Bucko.
Here.
John Parsons.
Here.
Ron, is Ron? I haven't. Ron Assini? Okay. John O'Neill's present. Okay. Next item is approval of the minutes of the February 23rd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additions, corrections, or deletions?
There's one correction in the initial roll call. My name got left off somehow.
Okay. So that correction will be made. So with that correction, all in favor?
I favor.
Oh,
And we have to roll call it.
Yes, after the roll call again. Sorry. So Nora said aye.
Aye.
Mark Doxer.
Aye.
John Parsons.
Aye.
John Sasso.
Yes.
John O'Neill. Yes. And Ron. Oh, Michael Coltman.
Mike Coleman, yes.
And Ron still.
He's joining right now.
Gary Gums.
Okay. Ron, we were just voting on the approval of the minutes. How would you like to be recorded?
We're good.
We're good. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
No. Hey. Yeah. Oh. That's my dog going crazy. Even though it's just my younger daughter coming home, that's his greeting. Okay.
We get it.
The senior center survey. And with kudos to people for the staff that helped put it in better order. And we tried to incorporate the different things that people had mentioned at the last meeting. Hopefully we didn't miss anything. And we didn't, well, let's put it this way. Nothing was omitted intentionally. So is there any, did I see any hands? Okay. On that, there is information as far as we were hoping that we would run it by the UMass so that they could fill in some of the data. As it turns out, that's not going to be possible because the data is not up to date and not reliable. I do have a Zoom meeting tomorrow with a staff person from the Mass Council on Massachusetts Councils on Aging. And I already sent her a copy of the survey. And we're going to talk about what, if anything, they can provide us before people go out. I also went online to a couple of places we're talking about, like North Andover. And it's clear that you're not going to be able to get much data as far as size or even pictures from a number of these places. Because even though they have, like in North Andover, they have a nice Facebook page and everything. Other communities, all they do is refer you back to the town website, and whatever the town website has about the council, that's what exists. That doesn't mean we certainly can get this information. It just means we may have to do a little bit more work to obtain it. All right, I think we can get right down to first of all, see, I made an assumption here. Oh, somebody's, who has their hand up?
I do.
Okay, John.
I don't know if this is the time, but I had a couple of comments I wanted to make on
Survey?
on the survey.
Sure.
Number 4, other. It says, can multiple programs be held at the same time? I think any senior center can make multiple programs at the same time. What I had put on my suggestion was asking if their main room can be partitioned to have multiple programs at the same time. And I think that's kind of important, particularly if you have a really big room.
Right. I think those are mutually exclusive. I think we can add that as far as the main room, but at least 2 of the centers that I've visited in the past, they had whole different multiple rooms. So things could be going on at the same time anyway, even if you had a big event going on. Let's say for the meals, you could even have something around the whole meal time for people who didn't want to necessarily, get the meal, which I'm sure nobody would be shocked that does happen, that people may want to go for a program, but not necessarily for the meal. So yeah, we can add that. And Jean, the person who did this survey, did you see that could be added to it? Okay,
Yes,
anything
so
else?
I just want to make
a
sure I
second-
get the wording correct, just
Okay.
so I have it right on. You're saying under number 4 where it says programs dash space needs, can multiple programs be held at the same time? Yes, no. You want to add a thing, can the multifunction room be subdivided?
Well, can the largest room be subdivided so that multiple programs can be at the same time? And
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question or make a suggestion on the staffing section too.
Okay, but let's do.
Why would we want multiple programs? That sounds so distracting to me. Multiple programs in the same room?
Yeah, what they have is, I know we had it in my agency, both of the last 2 places we were at, soundproof dividers. It's not just like you put up these half things sort of thing. You actually have a solid wall that can be pulled across. That
Kind
divides
of
up.
like the ballrooms, the big ballrooms they have divided.
Yes, exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because otherwise it looks like a space issue if you're putting
Right.
multiple programs in one room.
Right, and it'd be
That's not ideal to me at all.
no, and it'd be distracting from one to the
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
In,
Yeah.
in-
It's
also-
in our own senior center, we have multiple programs like chess and bridge, and they really don't affect each other when they're going on at the same time.
Right, but we're talking
In
about
in other places that have gyms, they often want to partition the gym into different sections to have like a Zumba class in one part and some other activity in the other part.
Mhm.
Okay,
We
so I'm
actually did
gonna
that today, so.
yeah, I'm gonna just put a little parentheses, e.g. soundproof with soundproof panels to allow multiple programs at the same time.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Okay, and what else?
But on the staffing section, I think it would be important for us to know how much volunteers are relied upon.
Ah,
Under the list positions, you could probably just say so-and-so is at a volunteer, but I think knowing the number of volunteers people use is important.
So I would add like an item C, volunteers.
Something like that, I guess, or
Okay.
if you didn't want to redo the whole thing, just,
Oh, no, it's okay. No big deal. I could just add a C and call it volunteers.
okay.
And do we want to know how many and
the number.
yeah.
And John Sasso, did you have your hand up, or you were just moving it up to?
Sorry, just going like this.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss. Okay, anybody else? I see Nancy's there. Okay, Mark.
Thanks, John. John Parsons, I think those are really good ideas. I'm just thinking on the volunteer thing. I think we're also trying to figure out how much they rely on volunteers, right? At the end of the day. So maybe there's a way to, I don't know exactly how to ask that, but that's, I think, what we're trying to get at. So if they say, 3 volunteers, I guess is a small amount, but if they said 20, I'm not sure that tells us that they rely a lot on volunteers or not a lot on volunteers. Is that a big number or a small number? So maybe that's kind of the question we're looking for is how reliant are you on volunteers to make your core programs run?
Right. How to phrase that? Or just put it that way. That, in other words, have that as an open-ended question. That might.
Do you think asking about the volunteer positions, because in the question we're asking for them to tell us about the employees and what positions they're in. In other words, you could have a volunteer in the kitchen, you could have a volunteer checking people in. Maybe if we ask for positions, that will give us an idea along with the quantity.
Or under
Yeah, I think that
staff,
works.
when you have paid and maybe you could have, we have staff, full and part-time, you could have paid and non-paid and volunteer. Is that?
Well, an employee would be considered paid, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull up the form so we can?
Sure.
Okay.
And how many hours do they work? Do they work
Well,
one day?
it has full and part-time now on this survey.
So in my mind, it's full-time positions and you're listing the positions, part-time positions and you're listing the positions, and then volunteer positions and list the positions. And that would give you a pretty good picture.
Okay. Everybody, I see people like kind of either
No.
nodding, yeah, nodding heads. Let's put it this way. Yeah, John Sasso says yes. Mark says yes. John
And
Parsons, does that
we'll know.
satisfy what you were looking for, John?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Okay. Nora, any other comments?
The only thing is do they work 20? Is it getting too complicated? But how many hours a week do they volunteer? If they're there every day versus, is that too technical? I don't know.
No, it's, if you really want to get a proper flavor, like Mark said, you could have 20 people, but it could be that they were there for one big activity that,
Right.
in the month, and they're not otherwise, or during tax season. If you do it during tax season and you're having some volunteers that are doing that, but then when it isn't tax season, they're not volunteering. So the number of hours, I think, even if you aggregate, yeah.
But if you have a lot of volunteers, that gets a little complicated,
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to try and entice people to give us feedback.
Right.
That isn't too difficult. I would assume that they can run a report on annual volunteer hours. I think we used to run it that way. And then list the positions. I would imagine most volunteers are part-time. I mean, I don't think anybody is a full-time volunteer.
Many nonprofits, at least the ones I was familiar with, would actually have that as a category, number of volunteer, hours and that sort of thing, for reports to different foundations and things. So it may not be something, but also hopefully a lot of this is going to be face-to-face. I mean, we're trying to get as much, data in advance, but on face-to-face, would be saying to the person, give us what you can, we'd rather get, as much information as possible without, making it,
burdensome. Yeah.
burdensome, so the person is reluctant to say, oh, okay, this is just, I don't want to start this process because this is going to take more time than I can afford to carry. All right, any other? Yep, Mark.
Just a general comment. I was looking through the Andover program and the feasibility study that they did, and they had a lot of information there. And I wanted to just comment on your point that you made, John O'Neill, about where do you get the data and things. So in that Andover report, they had enough data to fill out a lot of the facility stuff, square footage, number of rooms, elevator, things like that. All the inside stuff was all really in there really nicely. But I get it. Not everybody does that, but I think it may be that folks that have done a project recently or in the middle of one now, we might be able to find that data more easily.
Mhm.
Other ones, I agree. I looked at a couple of websites and nothing.
Right. So that gets right down to this next area, which is which places to visit. And but also, what I had done is, because I realized there's two separate things going on. We want comparable and we want process. And they're going to definitely overlap in some cases, but not in every case. And so that's why you see it the way it is on this. And I'm certainly not wedded to that division, but that's the reason behind why I broke it up. Because let's say like Newton, I could say is not comparable, but the process would be helpful. You know, so that way we don't eliminate anybody's, you know, information as far as process that might be helpful to us. Like, you know, Wilmington may or may not. Well, I did go through Wilmington, and that their process is very helpful to see what, you know, what they did. But even if they were a community that was 3 times the size they are, that process would be helpful. So I guess that's my point there. So given that, which would be the people's preference, we could go, and this is just off the top of my head now, saying, all right, do we first take a look at places that have the process and are comparable? You know, because we know we want to nail those. And it's more likely if they went through the process that we're going to be able to get more data filled out in advance. And there was the list that we had originally seen, and Andover was on it. And I'm assuming these are the ones that had process. Bedford, Milton. See, these weren't necessarily communities I would have considered comparable, but these, a list that we received, I think that maybe in the first UMass study looked at Natick, North Andover, and Westboro. Do people recall seeing that list? Because that I got right out of the study, I believe. Yes, Mark.
So, John, there's that one, and there's also what Kevin and team put into the archive, whatever we want to call it, that you can access, that talked about comparable communities. So there's a list there as well. Some of those overlap a little bit, some of them are different. So, for example, the list of comparable communities has Andover, Lexington, Lincoln, Newton, Wilmington, North Reading. So those are a little different from the ones you had just read.
Right. Well, I also then see, because those were like more process ones, I had Wilmington, North Reading, Wakefield, Melrose, I added as comparable communities. You know, because so those, I think we would be it'd be good, because in some cases that we don't want them to just look at, as much as it may be helpful to do it, just places that have gone through this process and invested a lot of time and energy, but there are others like us that haven't done it. And let's take a look. That could be helpful too. Let's say some of them are bigger than their existing site is already bigger than Reading for a population that's smaller. I already know that from taking a look at a couple of the locations. So I think that information is helpful, and to somebody who's on the outside, and I think that's where most of the people, other members of the select board and then at town meeting, people aren't going to know anything about comparabilities or this kind of thing. They're going to be looking at what we provide them. So I think it's important that we touch some of the communities that they do know and would kind of assume that we're somewhat alike, like some of the contiguous communities. That's why I think it's important to.
Now, is comparable based on number of elders or the
Comparability? Yeah. When I was thinking of comparability, I was thinking of town population and populations of elders.
Okay.
which aren't necessarily the same thing, but if you look at the 65 plus, 2020 census, and I did, and they had like Reading at 17.5. There were a number of communities around that, you know, this similar percentage of the population that were not cities, you know, that were also like suburban areas.
So like Stoneham, Wakefield, and Winchester, and I've been in there, but they're not comparable? Or there's
Winchester, sure, certainly, yeah. And Winchester, Stoneham. And what was that?
Stoneham and Wakefield.
Wakefield. Yeah, I had Wakefield. That was one of the ones I had mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you looking for suggestions at this time?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way too. How many we, you know, oh, do we want to just come up with a list and then kind of say we're going to do them all, or a subset, or whatever?
To me, it's important to go to places that just went through this. Situate just opened a brand new center 9 months ago.
Okay.
Their population is 19,000 something, so they're not that much smaller than us.
Okay. You mean you would go south of Boston, John?
I'll go anywhere you want.
Yeah, I have a son who lives in Hingham, and I just kind of like, I dread, especially the commute home. Yes.
I've got relatives down there too, no problem.
I see. Marilyn had her hand up. Yeah.
Just a question. You said 17.5. Was that a percent of the population?
Yes, 17.5%. The 65 plus.
And because we know we've got about 7,065 plus right now. Mm-hmm. And what's the total population in Reading?
They had it like I think it was like, let me see, I did have it written down. I thought it was like 25.6 or something like that. I thought it was supposed to be higher, but that's around what they had.
Yeah. I thought it was 24 something.
Yeah. I thought it was around 27 actually, but what do I know?
That's what I had thought it was, but that's not what the census figures showed.
So which census are you using, the federal or the town?
Federal, yeah.
Wouldn't the town be a more accurate one, the town census?
But if we wanted to have comparable, the town is not, you know, I went to something that had every single city in town.
No, but I mean, in terms of having the accurate proportions for Reading, wouldn't the annual town census be the most accurate data?
Yes.
And
but it wouldn't be scalable to other communities. That's the problem.
Why not?
Not every local community conducts a town census and gets a full response. So that's why it's typical to use census data because it's universal across the board. It's administered the same way. It isn't at the discretion of a city or a town. So for my 40 years of doing this, we've always used census data.
Yeah, that makes sense for a lot of things to me, but this is, it's not a statistical projection. It's just question, what have we got? Because I think right now we've got about 25% of our population is over 65. And that's a significant difference.
Marilyn, yeah, that's not likely though. I mean, they had Reading at 25,518.
Yeah.
65 plus at 17.5 of that.
But if you take 7,000 and you divide it by.
Yeah, but I'm not sure of the 7,000.
We don't believe the town census? That's where it came from, didn't it?
I don't know where it came from.
Kevin, you and Mark shared that with the council.
We did. That was the information I got from the town clerk. Yeah. And again, it's always a moving target. There's
right, because she thought that the census was going to show us at 27 something, and I know it didn't.
All right. Well, whatever. I just point out that if it's anywhere around 25%, that's significantly different than 17%. Yes, sure. And it's just fuzzy as it is. It's as close as we come to fact, I think. So I think it should be taken into consideration in addition to this statistical comparability issues, because the elder population's been growing a lot in Reading in the last few years with, Reading
Right.
Woods, for example.
But a
So
number of
that would-
people that have moved out. A number of older people have moved out. At least just even people I know. There's been a significant number of Brooksby. It seems like, it's kind of like Reading North in some ways, and people moving to be close to the family.
Yeah, no, I understand. But we've also got Reading Woods that has 5 buildings, I think, that you have to be over 55. So we've had a lot of growth as well. Anyway, I just wanted to throw it out there that the numbers I was given on the Council on Aging would show us at about 25%. So that's all.
Mark?
Thanks, John. So a couple of things. One, I think we should look at age 60 plus rather than 65 for a bunch of reasons. One is that's in our charter. Two is that as you think about boomers, which is the population that will start to be growing to this level, we've talked a lot about services that boomers are needing, whether it's for elderly parents or it's for themselves. And so I think 60 actually becomes a good threshold for that. Plus, as we talk about doing things that could take the longer term of things, a few years, many of those 60s will be moving towards 65 faster than perhaps they want to, but that's where they're going to be. So I think 60 might be a better benchmark to use. And I noticed that, again, I looked at Andover, and Andover did use the 60 as a benchmark in terms of what's going on. In fact, they actually divided up by different generations to see what it looks like, but they use 60 plus as their starting point. That would, to Marilyn's point, I think the population of the town, if you look at age 60 plus, is in the 20+% range. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's 20+% suddenly. And I think that's a bit of a threshold. I think that's an important threshold to think about as well.
Okay. So we will look at 60 plus. Also mindful of the fact that we're talking about a center that could very well be for all age groups. And so that's going to be on the table as well. We don't want to lose sight of that. All right. So as far as number of places, I had listed some, and then Nora we added a couple, and John Parsons had Situate added because they had just gone through the process. What's the sense of the group as far as, do we want to just, every community that's been listed that we will attempt to visit? Is that doable? Actually, we did. I must say that Nancy Zimlak has volunteered to help out in visits, so we appreciate that offer. And John Parsons is eager to go, and so that's going to be helpful. So I think the number of visits, as long as we're not talking about dozens, this is doable. Do we want to? Why don't I list them again, and just so we have it. So it was Andover, Bedford, Milton, Natick, North Andover, Westboro, Wilmington, North Reading, Wakefield, Winchester, Stoneham, Melrose, and Situate. Okay.
John, would it make sense to create a document that we can look at and we can put names next to the centers in terms of who's going to go visit?
Okay.
Is anyone anxious to do that? If not, I will.
And you're talking about how quickly well, you can tell me when go before the select board. Would it be helpful to be able to say, all right, here's the communities we're going to, and if there is actually some that we've seen by then, would that be a plus, or would that not? as far as where we're at now, that's not as important.
Yeah. So my opinion is that's not necessary. If you're asking my opinion, I think telling them how we're approaching things and kind of the steps that we're taking is what's most important. I think if we've visited one or two, that's not going to particularly change what we're saying. I think it's more of a kind of an update. Here's the process that we're planning to go through, and I think that's all that's needed.
Situates with the SC. John Sasso, as people can see, has shared the screen and is doing a little spreadsheet.
So let's add the other communities.
Yes.
You want to read those again, John?
Okay. Besides the ones he has in there, Natick, North Andover, Westboro, Wilmington.
Already there.
Oh, okay, sorry. North Reading, Wakefield, Winchester, Melrose, Stoneham.
And John, I think we should add Lexington to the list. They're just an example of a very successful community / intergenerational center. So I think it's good to get an idea on both senior centers and intergenerational centers and bring that back to the group.
It seems to me Bedford was on that original list too.
Bedford was on the list. Yep.
Yes, I did state it and I forgot.
And Wakefield has a school building. I don't think it's a newer center.
It's a very old center and it's very big.
But see, there was two separate
Stoneham's
things.
very old.
There's one for the process and then there's
Okay, one for the process one. Okay, got
one, comparable. Yes.
Yep.
Can we, if you don't mind, I was thinking of actually, as we were talking about this, putting a little bit of characterization to help us prioritize. And so we picked, so we don't, if we really do want some of each type, we can pick and choose and use that as a gauge.
I believe Natick is a community center.
Yes, I think it is.
Right now, Wilmington has an old center there. Obviously,
Right, they're in the process, well into the process. They've already selected a site.
Yep.
Andover's new.
And they're just a senior center.
You said
Situate's new.
new. Natick was new,
No.
what, 2012?
Yep.
Is Andover new or renovated plus new? Did they take the old center and add to it, or is it just a brand new one?
I don't know.
I think we're saying new, whether it's renovated, newly renovated, or newly built, aren't we?
For our purposes, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Because Lexington is newly renovated.
Because once again, it's process, whether it was renovated or not, because we don't know which direction, what could happen. We may have some idea, but that isn't sure. And then there's the comparability thing.
The center in Winchester is old, but it is still very modern. So I don't know what that means to anybody, but
It's newer than the other older ones.
Yeah, much newer and much more and much better upkeep, very good upkeep.
Yeah.
I think Randolph might be another opportunity to look at a community center, and that's something that the chair of our permanent building committee was involved with on the construction side.
Okay. DO.
DO.
Right.
Yeah.
PH.
PH, right?
Yeah. No
Yeah,
F.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
You said that's a community center?
Community, and it's new also, John.
How about Bedford? Because that was on the list that I thought, Kevin, that you had Marilyn? Yes?
North Andover is in the process of building a new one, which I believe is a community center, but it's a construction site, so you're not going to be able to visit it other than drive by it, but it does have an older one as well. But the community one is well underway. They're busily building it. And just curious, Linfield, did that go off the list? Everybody says wonderful things about Linfield.
Okay, we can add Linfield to the list.
Great. Everybody raves about it, so there
Yeah,
must be
it's
something.
old, but it's nicely, it's like a medium.
Has anyone considered Needham?
You had mentioned that, Ron. Why not put it on?
Sure.
Is Needham a senior center or a community center?
Senior.
Senior.
Newish or old, Ron?
I think it was 2003.
Okay.
It's a newer building.
Yeah. That's 17.
Why don't you add Dedham to the list? I know Dedham. I'll do that when I visit my folks, but they're a brand new center. They've opened up within the past year, so I will. I'll take that one.
Okay.
And isn't Arlington doing something? Somebody said something about Arlington. I'm back and forth to Arlington a lot. I could take that one.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. I think I brought it up only because my brother-in-law is involved in the senior group there, but I don't know if they have anything going on right now. Who volunteered, Dedham?
Kevin.
Kevin. Okay.
And that's a senior center in Dedham.
I'll volunteer Needham.
It looks like Lincoln was on the list of process places because it sounds like they're right in the middle of something. I'm just looking at the list, Kevin, that I think you had.
Yeah, I was going back to the one that.
They've been at it for years, I believe.
Oh, really?
If you want me to chime in places I'd take Situate. I'd like Bedford, and I play bridge in Winchester twice a week. So I'm always there all the time.
So you said Winchester?
Winchester, Situate.
I'll alphabetize these in a minute.
And in Bedford.
I just verified Arlington is reopening its new center in the coming weeks.
Oh.
2 years of phased work, and they're opening it as a community center in the next few weeks.
John, I could take Andover.
Okay. Amy's.
I can take whatever is left. Whatever.
I can as well. I'd be happy Wilmington, any of these places.
I'd like to do Linfield. There's a select board member there who Kevin, you had mentioned him or reached out to, I think it was a him.
I think it was in North Reading.
It was North Reading, not Linfield?
North Reading, yeah.
Okay, I would love to do that if that's open, and I'll do the outreach to the center and to the board.
Mark, I can give you the name of someone, a friend of the family that's very involved over there. Her name is Pauline Finberg. She's awesome.
In North Reading?
In Linfield.
In Linfield. Okay,
yes.
I can take Linfield too. I'll take those two. How's that? And thank you. That would be great.
Yeah. Pauline's a good, close family friend.
Ron?
Hey, John, can you change Needham? It looks like it is a multi-purpose because they rent out the multi-purpose rooms. So they have a rental agreement if you want to use it for, other activities. So it is multi-purpose. Maybe that's a question we could ask on the.
Yeah, as Winchester does the same thing. They rent out.
Maybe put that onto the survey, onto the site thing as well too, whether or not they rent out.
Good
the
question.
facility.
Yeah. Yep. I'll add that.
Because Winchester is owned by Cummings, not by the town.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yes. They claim they're the only senior center in the Commonwealth that's not really town related.
So money's no object.
And it's expensive. It's expensive to rent the Winchester Senior Center. I looked at it for my wedding 26 years ago, and it was more expensive than the Hillview Country Club.
Wow.
I could do Wilmington.
And I can do Stoneham.
Who said Stoneham? I'm sorry. No, was that Nora?
Me, Amy.
Amy. I'm sorry.
I have a deep voice.
Mike Coleman can do Natick. I don't know anybody there, but
Has anybody been to Lexington?
I have, and Jenna, who's on the call from Rec. She and I went together.
Yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah, there was a note. I was just looking back. There's a note that said the Lexington Center was visited in 2018.
Yep.
But we'd have to go back, right, because of the survey.
Anybody else want to volunteer? I'll take one or two as well, but I'm just waiting to see who else has any preferences.
Yeah, I don't care.
I can do North Andover for you if you'd like. I've got family up there and I go up all the time.
Okay.
I can try Melrose.
I can do Wakefield. Okay.
Well, I was gonna try to take something close.
Okay. No, well, you take what you want. Yeah.
Like
I'll take
Westboro, John says.
Westboro.
Yeah, really. No, I'm not
I'll
going to.
take Westboro.
If Randolph is something we can get from the Permanent Building Committee chair, I'm sure he probably has every detail. If it's kind of a long ride to go to Randolph. And I have confirmed that we have a liaison from the Permanent Building Committee. Nancy Toomey has offered to come to our March 30th meeting and serve as liaison.
Awesome.
Great.
Kevin and I have talked to them and try to make sure they're involved early.
Someone said they were going to take Westboro. Who was that? I apologize. I didn't hear.
Nora.
Okay.
And Mike Coleman said Melrose.
Ah, thought somebody had said it.
Hi, this is Nancy Zimlak. I did volunteer, and it looks like maybe Milton. I'll take Milton. And is anybody doing Lexington? Did someone speak up for that?
I can do Lexington too, Nancy.
Well, if you're going to go to Lexington, Amy, I'd be interested in going because since it is a community center, I'm really interested in seeing a successful community center.
I'm Jenna Fiorenti. I'm the rec administrator. Hi, everyone. It's hard because I can't see everyone, but I'm happy to facilitate that meetup at Lexington. I have several contacts over there that I speak with quite frequently. So whatever you need me to do, I can reach out and set that up.
Great.
That'd be great. Thank you, Jenna.
Did I spell your name right?
With a J.
Jenna's with the J, Genevieve's with the G. I blame my parents.
I saw your initials G, and I'm like, okay, maybe I was spelling it wrong.
And the PBC chair is Patrick Tompkins.
And Pat is an awesome guy.
Yep.
and knows his stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Also, sorry to chime in. I know Salem just opened up a community center as well. They're probably not, I mean, they're considered a city, but I'm happy to stop in and bring the survey. I live right in Peabody, live right on the Salem, Peabody Salem line. So if you wanted me to swing over there, I could certainly do that for you guys too.
Yeah. There's a couple of cities already here, so that's fine. Some
And
people choose Reading of becoming a city, you know. I don't, having grown up in a city, but I know that's a concern.
Outside of our scope.
Yeah.
If anybody that has signed up for more than one afterwards feels like it's too many to take on, please feel free to give me a call because I'm available during the day to do this kind of thing. So, you know, feel free to give me a call and say, hey, can you do Melrose or whatever? Okay.
What about Lincoln? Do you want to do Lincoln?
Yeah, I'll do Lincoln. Yep.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So who said they were going to do Lincoln?
Nancy Z.
Sorry. I don't see everybody's name and who's speaking, so I was like, trying to figure it out. Okay.
So there are 21 that we've got covered here. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's excellent. So as far as the agenda now, thank you very much, John Sasso, for doing that.
Excuse me, John, before you move on, do we want to try to set a time frame ideally for some of these too?
Okay, sure. And does that come with a suggestion, Mark, or?
Well, you know, love to say, you know, maybe what makes sense is to say each of us get to one in the next couple of weeks, and the second one within 2 weeks beyond that. And if you can do more sooner, that's great. Okay. But maybe that's not too onerous, unless people feel like we can do more.
Let's try to do, our next meeting would be the 30th. So let's see what we can have done. We're not saying everybody, you know, so if everybody has at least one done by the 30th, and then if we do better, that's great. Is that satisfactory, Mark?
I think it's great. Thanks, John.
Okay.
So are we going to get a revised form to use, or are we just going to handwrite in the new stuff?
No, well, I shouldn't speak, but Jean, can we have a revised form? Yeah.
Yes.
She's not
Yeah,
here.
I can get that out. I'll send it around. What's today? Tomorrow. If I don't get to it tomorrow, which I'll try to, I'll make it a priority first thing on Monday.
Okay. Sounds good.
And excuse me, are you thinking, is this set up in Google Docs or is it a Word doc? Just thinking of how should we get the information back?
It's a fillable PDF.
Great. And then can we send them to you? Would that be the best?
Yep, that's the best. Send it to me and I'll take it from there.
Great. Thank you.
John, I'll send this to you. And as people fill in, if we want to just fill the rest of this information in, just so we know, that'd be good. But I'll send this off to you. And then you can send this out to the rest of the group so everybody has a record of what they signed up for.
Okay.
Super.
Or does
John,
yeah.
John Sasso, this is Kevin. If you want to send that to me, I'll handle sending that out to everybody.
Okay. You probably already have us grouped, right?
Yes.
And does include Marilyn and Nancy?
And Jenna.
And Jenna.
Yep. Okay. I can add all of them.
Okay. Great.
Okay, I'll send that out to you shortly.
All right. So we already did 4, as well as at the same time we're doing 3, because we're gonna, the ones that have a process are identified in the thing, and that will be part of the expectation. So that might mean that, the ones who are doing a community that has a process, you may, if that's too much, in other words, if you're taking on like 2 places that has a more recent process that they've undergone, and that might be, considered, too much work that you didn't anticipate, please let us know, okay? All right. And, okay. Then we have prepare questions for meeting with UMass consultants on March 30th. Now, so not to be confused with the survey we did, our list of questions that we wanted the UMass people to look at on this, on the survey, the community survey that they were going to be disseminating. So this is, what we want to directly ask the consultants at that meeting. And this isn't, we want to, if to the extent that you can come up with things now, fine, but clearly since the meeting is not till the 30th, if things come, if you have other questions, but this is to help us focus and try to take some time, because otherwise, maybe even I might be, guilty of it at times. If I might tend otherwise to wait till, the day of the 30th, and that morning said, oh, geez, I need to get some questions down. So we're trying to stimulate the thought process as far as what we want to do with this valuable time with the, and also, let me see, Jean, because we had talked, is this anticipated, this is going to be anticipated to be a joint meeting with the Council on Aging, with the consultants? That's my understanding.
Yeah, that's entirely up to the council. I know we talked specifically about making sure the council was looped in when we got to the topic of the townwide community survey.
Right.
So this will be probably a starting point on that.
Okay, so Marilyn, so it's your call.
I would say yes, and thank you, Jean.
Okay.
Now, do we know what UMass is going to do for us? Has that already been established? Like, are they taking the data from the facility? Are they analyzing it? Is that
No.
No.
Jean, why don't you?
Yeah, sure. So we hired UMass Center for Gerontology to lead the community engagement piece of this, and to help us develop a community-wide survey, host a number of community forums for stakeholders, for residents, and then to attend a handful of the recalc meetings, and really be the lead in the outreach process. And so they have done this in a lot of communities, and since they have the deep knowledge on this topic and did our needs assessment, it's kind of a nice continuum. The full scope is posted on the website on the recalc page.
Okay.
So that's outlines the whole thing.
I guess my only how are they going to conduct this survey? Like, what method are they actually going to use?
I think that's what we're going to discuss on the 30th. There are a couple of ideas. We'd like to make it amenable to all ages. And so with other community surveys, we did a bunch last fall. Mark will remember the QR codes and the postcard mailings and that kind of thing. We did kind of a twofer where we launched it for a project called Your Downtown, where we tried to get community feedback on developing the 40R Smart Growth District and whether or not there needed to be modifications to the zoning. And that kind of fed into the CPDC's process for what will be brought forward to town meeting this in a couple of weeks. And then we also included the QR code for another ad hoc committee, Park, who was looking at downtown parking. So we kind of piggybacked on those two. I know that there's lots of discussion about lots of surveys and lots of newer committees that have been established. So it wouldn't be unusual to see, you know, some ability to work together on surveying. But this UMass group was hired to lead that, and in collaboration with Recalc and the Council on Aging.
Ron?
My preference is to make sure we have paper surveys, and I know we've heard from a lot of people that, you know, QR codes are great, but not everybody is up for that technology. So I want to make sure it's equitable across the community so that we're not just getting people with the technology and compatibility with that. I've heard from a lot of people, don't give me website links, don't give me QR codes, give me a piece of paper, like I can just fill it out and that's it.
Ron?
Is email being used as well too? I seem to have gotten on an email list about some other land recreation or something like that survey as well too, that's been sent to me. Is that something that we can use, or do we know?
Yeah, I think this will all be good questions for UMass to guide us on this. But yeah, we've used that in the past, multiple ways of getting at it.
But how are the lists generated? I think that's what to Ron's point. I mean, I know I'm obviously, because I get some of these survey links directly. So any idea of how the list of email addresses have been?
Voter registration, mates? I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that anyone who's registered in recreation programs, I send out a bunch of surveys from downtown parking. I've done that several times.
Yep.
For the senior center, I've done it, and for myself for the Birch Meadow Master Plan. So I'd be happy to facilitate any survey data to anyone. But again, to Jean's point, to make it equitable, if I sent it out to all my rec people, I don't know how many of those people are seniors, which I could find out as well. But we just want to make sure that probably it is equitable, like Jean said, but happy to help in any way I can on that side.
Thanks. Yeah, we have a very good mailing list in the town clerk's office of residents. And so that's what we used the last time, and we did a postcard. Now we don't have to do a postcard, we can do an actual, you know, paper survey, and UMass will have a lot of good ideas about the best way to get responses. But we have a database out of the town clerk's office to mail surveys.
Suggestion.
Capture every senior.
Are you not?
It'd be everybody.
Everybody.
Community-wide. Yep.
Suggestion. The library is a great place, and one of the few places where people of all ages go within the course of a month, let's say. If we had the survey and maybe actually some volunteers at certain times to encourage people, you know, just to, you know, that might be a possibility to capture people, because it's, I've found in my experience that if you get them to actually do it at a certain time, you know,
yeah,
that's your best bet.
Yep.
Yes, John Sasso.
So just a couple quick things. Reminder, we you know, in the input that we put together for the consultant, we did actually have a whole host of line items regarding this particular question. You know, what is the appropriate way to administer the survey, electronic suggestions for, you know, those that might be hearing impaired. I mean, a whole host of things we put on there. So certainly we can query the consultant on that. I guess this is a really good discussion about, I was thinking as we were having the conversation, the question that I would want to ask the consultant at this point is what else do they need from us? What other information do they feel would be helpful to give them very specific things that we're concerned about? I mean, obviously we've put together some input already, but it may be exactly that. They may say, well, you guys need to put together the email distribution list. You guys need to put together the how you're going to disseminate this survey. They may come back and put that back to some extent on us to help facilitate. So I guess in general, I think there's a question that I would want to ask them is, what pieces of this further do you need from us? What pieces of this are going to fall squarely back on the town, Recalc and others to execute? I think that would be helpful to know, so we could set some expectations and, start to put some of those plans together, like, afternoons at the library, to your point, have a volunteer there to be able to answer questions and help facilitate it, or whatever other ideas, or pulling email distribution lists from multiple groups within the town, or maybe taking advantage of some of the other town social media sites to advertise this. So I think those are questions that I would expect them to ask, but I'd like to, ask them what else is it that they want from us or need from us to help execute this.
Yeah, and again, I'm just going to caution on social media. The last time I included something in the water bill with some website links on various projects I've been working on, this is a pre-COVID, I got several angry phone calls from seniors that didn't appreciate the fact that there were website links and want paper. So that's why the mailing list from the town clerk is gonna, I think, really reach everybody in an equitable way, even though it's paper and postage and all of that.
Okay, so we have 3 people with their hands up. So I'm going to take John Parsons, then Mark, then Marilyn. Okay, so John.
Okay, my question is for Gene Delios. The list you're talking about, does that go to households or individuals?
That goes to households.
So if you have 2 seniors living in a household, only one gets to give their opinion. I'm wondering about that. Is that the way we want it?
Yeah, there's 4 adults in my household.
Well, I think there's a couple of ways you could do it. And again, this is really, UMass does this all the time. So I'm going to defer to the experts. But there's a lot of ways to encourage more participation. Again, the paper survey, in my mind, gets us over the hurdle of people that are not familiar with technology. Adding links in addition to the paper for the multiple householders that want to respond, I think, is another option.
Okay.
If you have 2 seniors in a household, both of them may not be comfortable with anything but paper.
Then they can make a copy.
Well, hopefully there'd be an option, because making a copy may not also be that convenient. That they could ask for another one to be sent or whatever. That hopefully that would be an option rather than just say make a copy. I don't have well, I have a copy machine, but not everybody's going to have a functioning copier. And then the only other option, you go to the library if mobility is not an issue for you. So that's another thing.
Can they call the town and say, "Can you send me another survey?" I guess that's another one to do it, right?
Yep. Right.
Thanks, John. Let me, if I could, just share for 1 second. This is, and John Sasso and I had talked a little bit earlier. We kind of looked at a couple of the feasibility studies. And I just wanted to share this with the group because I thought maybe we want to compare what was asked here. This is the Andover feasibility study. And take a look at that first column on the left. I think I can point at it. Here you go. And these are the categories they asked about in terms of, what should, be involved in a senior center. And then going across, they broke it by different age groups. I'm sure they gathered the data, but they also asked, how old are you? And then they figured out how to break it out that way. And it might be worth our while as we're deciding what questions we want to ask to make sure that, for example, does this cover everything we're interested in, or there's some others from our other list? I think that UMass actually did this work for Andover. But it was helpful for me to see it kind of on a piece of paper that somebody else had put together. And it also didn't look massive and it looked organized. So I just wanted to share that. It's in that Andover link that you can get from the Recalc website if anybody wants to look at it also. But I thought it was just kind of helpful, I thought.
Okay. Looks good. Marilyn?
Just one thought on the capturing everybody in the household. I mean, one thing they could do on the survey, and again, we'll hear what UMass has to say, is ask, have separate sections on it and ask that every adult in the household fill out a section. So if there are 2 adults, 2 sections will be filled out with the same questions asked, because, they may not have the same opinion as I think John was pointing out, and that way it's there. The other thing is I just want to offer our help. The Council on Aging is available to, we certainly have funds at our disposal, and we certainly have the interest in terms of trying to promote more awareness of this so people will have a clue of what we're talking about when this comes, because there hasn't been, depending on where you look, there hasn't been a lot of publicity about it. And I think the more they understand what you're trying to accomplish, the greater the likelihood they'll give it a little bit of forethought and they might actually reply. So, if there are postcards, whatever we can send out to be supportive, we would, I think I'm safe in saying on behalf of the council, we certainly can bring it to the council, and I would expect a favorable response. We're more than happy to help with this. Outreach is part of our responsibility in educating the community. So whatever we can do, we would love to.
Thank you very much.
And again, I would have to get their vote, but given all the past conversations, they'll be able to knock me over with a feather if they say no. You never know. But we want to help be supportive in this, as we are trying to be supportive of the Pleasant Street Center as it starts coming back to full capacity. So don't forget us. We're here to help you.
John Sasso.
Yeah, just a quick question. I was curious. So I think the town clerk database for households is what, 9,000 households in Reading? Somewhere on that order? Does that seem about right?
It's 10,000.
10,000. So do we have budget to do this? I mean, we're talking probably what, a 2 or 3 page survey, a full letter head. That's probably going to be a couple grand just postage alone to get this out. Is that something that we have budget for? I'm just curious about, how we execute this. I mean, I think sending out a hard copy survey, to your point, Gene, is a great thing to be able to do. I'm just curious if that's the only, if that makes sense, if we have the financials for it, if there's other things that we need to do. Do we send out a postcard instead and say, if you want a hard copy survey, come ask us and we'll send it out to you, or you can call in and somebody will take your answers down, or you can go to the library and or go to the senior center or go online. I'm just curious what
Yep.
other suggestions.
We have the money.
Okay. All right.
All right.
That was easy.
Nancy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One, I was just wondering where this Recalc website is, and if you're talking about the one page that's on the Pleasant Street Center site, or is there another place? Anyways, that's the main question. Where's the
That's where everything is.
Oh, okay.
You go to the
I find it that easy to get.
No.
Actually.
So you're going to go to
Multiple
departments?
steps. Yeah.
Yeah. And and the information needs to be updated on it.
It's under Pleasant Street Center.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing.
Yeah, so it's really, it's a page within the Pleasant Street Center.
Pleasant Street Center,
Right.
yes. You click on the Pleasant Street Center button and it's pops right up.
Yep.
Thanks, Ron.
Can the committee update it? You know, it would be
No.
nice to have everybody's names on it. And
No, that the volunteers, staff can update, but
no, that's what
IT
I mean.
yeah, IT is
Yeah.
very strict about who can access what.
No, I realize that.
By the end of the month, it's going to look very different
Yes.
as well. So
Yep.
That's
The same.
good.
The same
the
night.
entire town webpage.
Yes, the
website.
same night that we are giving the update to the select board, you will hear the update on the new website. So stay tuned.
Woohoo.
It's
Thanks be to God.
the agenda is probably about, I don't know, 7 or 8 hours of meeting topics on the 22nd. So,
Yeah, I saw things kept on being added, so.
yep, it's a long agenda.
Yes. Okay, Marilyn?
Just a question about where we've got the recalc page located. If we're talking,
Something. We lost you.
there we go. Where, in terms of where that page is located, if we're talking about, I mean, it makes sense for seniors, but we're talking about a community center thing. And also if we want input from the maybe people who are taking care of seniors but aren't seniors themselves, is there not an option to put it somewhere that's more open to the community as a whole?
That's a good point, Marilyn.
Yeah. You're not going to hear about my need for a swimming pool on the senior center page, but you might in the community center.
Yeah, recreation, we have our own website, www.readingrec.com. So we can put that on our homepage. We can put a link to the Recalc website if that's helpful.
Or could we
That
put
would be-
something even on the front of the town's webpage? You know, letting people know this is being discussed and it affects the entire community.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation. That's all.
Oh. I just had one more logistical question. Is there a time frame for when this survey is planning to be distributed? Is it May or June, or I'm just curious if there's some kind of time frame.
That's going to be discussed on the 30th.
Oh, okay.
That's a good question for the 30th. Anything else for, oh, Marilyn, did you forget to put your hand down or you have another question?
I forgot, but I do have another question. I guess just to go a little further on offering to help, would there be any objection to our putting together a postcard that just is informative? Recalc is underway, expect a survey, you'll be hearing from us. And we can run the text by you, we're happy to do that. I'm just really worried that people just don't, they're not aware, and the more they're aware, the better response you're gonna get.
Unless they read the Chronicle.
That sounds like another good question for the for UMass.
Yeah.
What's their? They've done this for a living, so that they'll be able to give us guidance on the best way to get the best response, I think.
It's more than just the response. It's also just making people aware so they've got a chance to come to these meetings, do whatever they might like. We'd be happy to, again, I speak without getting a vote, but I'd be happy to take it to the council when we meet next week to see if there's interest in our simply sending out an informative postcard. And again, we're happy to run the text by you if you have any question about it.
I think if we did it now, we're doing it too soon. We need to do it closer to the time that the survey is actually going out. Because people would see it and then forget about it.
That's the
They'd see
point.
the postcard and then forget about it.
Yeah, I see your point. All right. Well, when the time comes up, again, we're happy to help. We have the ability to do this. We have the funds. I think it could serve a lot of good in the community just to make them aware people are working on senior needs.
John Sasso?
Yeah, thanks, John. So this is maybe more relevant to the last topic, but where this has been brought up, I think it's appropriate. One of the things, and Mark mentioned a little earlier, he and I had some conversations about process, and I spent some time actually digging into the Wilmington process and looking back at all of the flyers that they put out over the last basically year or so to communicate to the community how they kind of got to where they are today. And that included even a very early flyer that basically just gave background information. So I think, one of the things I was thinking as we talk about getting ready for the select board, and even thinking further, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other interesting pieces that comes out of Wilmington, but the one thing that I thought that kind of stood out was the way they communicated, or at least attempted to communicate with the community on a regular basis. So I just throw that out as an idea that we might want to consider. And they posted things on Recal on their website. They use that as their primary approach, but they certainly, I think, tried to make it available to everybody. So just something to think about in terms of getting ready, even though the survey may not come out for another month or two. I think if we, even if we just started to get a little bit top of mind to folks about what's going on here and what we're planning might be helpful. And I was thinking we could do that in conjunction with the prep for the select board meeting as well, kind of summarize all that before we get too far down the line. So it was very clear from looking at their process that's one of the things they really did a good job on. So
I think the Wilmington newsletters that they put out on a regular basis were very helpful, very readable.
Right.
You got a good understanding of exactly what they were doing and where they were at.
I think that was half the battle, and I definitely, in reading those, felt that they, whether you agreed or disagreed, it gave you the information, and I think it was really helpful about it. So, anyhow.
Okay. So, getting to the presentation for the select board. I mean, there are some things that are easy to start out with, Well, I guess, no, I stepped back a second. I was going to say, Mark, do you really think that the select board is fully aware of what is transpiring? In other words, how basic do we need to get before we just tell them what we've been doing?
So I think that the select board created Recalc. So in terms of the need to do something, I think they're up to speed on that. They're not at all up to speed on the process going forward, the different pieces, in fact, that we talked a lot about this evening. The information on the consultant, information on benchmarking, talking about, in fact, the role that the Council on Aging has been playing in meetings, and kind of some of our next steps. I think that is exactly what we should update them on. It's not saying, hey, we've already done X particularly. It's much more, here's the process we're going through. These are the most important pieces. There will be this community gathering. In fact, John Sasso's point in terms of getting information out there, just saying, here's what we're working on. That's another way to get the information out there. And Marilyn, for your comments too, I don't know how many seniors use the select board meetings as the cure to insomnia, but whichever ones do, then there's the opportunity for that also. So I think that's what we want to give forward. If you were asking me, what do I think? I think it's a handful of slides only that talks about, committee established, meeting regularly. Here's what we're working on. There are at least, it sounds like there are about 2 or 3 separate branches that we're working on. I do have a note out to the moderator, town meeting moderator, just asking what's possible in terms of reports. In other words, does it have to be a written report? Can it be a verbal report? Can it be a combination? I heard a rumor that it may be either a recorded report or written, or a recorded and written as opposed to live, but I'm not sure of that yet. And I think those are the pieces. I don't think we need to do more than that. I suspect there'll be some questions from board members. just asking, how it's going, what's the process, do you need anything else, that sort of thing. And then I think that'll be great. And I believe we're slotted in. I don't know the exact agenda, but I requested 9 o'clock, John.
Oh, if it could be close to the 9:30, that would be better.
Well, I given the agenda, they'll probably be fine, or I can ask that it be taken something else out of order ahead of it.
Okay.
I think that we can work that out. I don't think we've ever had a problem with moving things to later.
Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think I have a decent handle on the ingredients. It's now like help on the slides. I'll admit, that's not my kind of thing, developing this, the slides. So if there can be some expertise, technical expertise, I would be greatly appreciated.
I'm happy to work with you, John, or if other people would prefer to do it, that's fine also. I see Ron's hand.
I can help, John. I'm pretty good at it. Do it all day long.
Okay.
And I think that less is more, if you know that expression.
Yes.
Informative, but what we're doing as opposed to the nitty gritty. For example, we don't need to go through what questions we're asking, but I think we do need to talk about how we're going to be reaching out to the community.
Well, that part about reaching out to community, that's not until tonight. And the consultants are going to have, that's their big thing, right? I mean, we're going to be hopefully provide guidance to them.
Right. But in terms of the process, that's how, Gene coordinated the timing of hiring these folks. Right. The mission that we've given them in terms of what we want them to do, that's all towards supporting what we're working on here. So it's not necessarily the bodies that are doing the specific things, other than we're bringing in some expertise that does this for other communities. And again, from a process point of view, I think that's exactly right.
Right. I hear you there. It's just that the reality is we as committee didn't do that. That was a separate process. The procurement, we weren't involved in at all. The consultants have been on board since the end of January, and we're going to meet with them March 30th, which is after. So in other words, we will not have had any contact with the consultants until after the select board meeting.
Well, just to be clear, so Kevin and Gene have.
Right, but they're not the committee. See,
I think, yeah, I think that,
report?
Yeah, I think this is a community process, and there are going to be lots of different groups and people that are going to be involved with it. And I think it's fine to talk about all those different people and groups that are going to be involved and how things are moving ahead. I think that's the focus. I think what we're focused on is how are you going to come back to the board and to town meeting with some recommendations on senior center, senior community center needs, and what the next step would be in terms of an ask. What's the next step that you need? Clearly, this committee can't take this, and I don't know if any of us can do schematic drawings. I'm pretty sure we can't. So, what is it that we can't ask for that until we know what our needs are, what the thoughts are, to be able to report back on that and then have an ask. And I think the communication process that we all just talked about is critical in terms of what's going on, to share with the community, here's what we're doing, here's what we're learning, and then here's what the recommendations are, look like, and then what are the next steps.
Anybody else? Oh, John Sasso, you have your hand up, John.
Yeah, just quick question. This was actually, I was thinking about this as you were talking. So I suspect the select board, and Mark, you can clarify, might at least want to ask a little bit about the status of the consultancy and or the survey, and again, I realize we obviously haven't had an opportunity, nor will we prior to the status meeting. But is there something more that Gene and Kevin can give us for, input into this again, I like we asked, I think Nancy was the one that asked tonight, when are they planning on doing this? Well, we don't know this yet because we haven't had, much more involved meeting with them. But I was just curious, what information, if at all, do we feel comfortable with presenting? To your point, this is a community effort and there's a lot of different pieces to this puzzle that are coming together. But what on that regard, because that certainly was one of the big items that was asked as far as recalc is concerned. So I'm not saying that we should be apologizing for not having had that meeting yet, but I'm saying, okay, let's at least, what can we tell them? I guess that would be my question.
Well, I think the scope is really the pieces that you want to talk about. We very deliberately brought that scope to this group in one of the first meetings, if not the first meeting, and recalc took a vote and approved the scope. So that was important right up front so that we all were clear about what UMass was going to do for us. The problem with timeframes where we sit right now today on March 9th is that, I can tell you, oh, we're going to have a survey done by such and such a date, but this is a iterative process with a committee, maybe 2 or 3 committees that are going to weigh in. And so until we have those conversations, I think it's going to be difficult to put a time frame on when the survey is going to be administered.
And that's fine. That absolutely, like, I mean, the bullet points are, define the scope of the consultant RFQ, selected the consultant, had initial meeting, set up committee and provided inputs, what are those 3 or 4 bullets that we can say that have been done, even though we haven't actually had much more, at least we can show them that there have been activities and things that have been done. And these are all important checkoffs, Gene. I absolutely agree. I'm just trying to say, well, what does that slide look like? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So I would just go to the scope and pull what we outlined, which is the survey, the public forums, the all of the pieces of that that are going to align as we engage UMass to go out into the community and find out what is the pulse of this community.
Okay. All right, great. No, that's perfect. I just, like I said, I was just feeling a bit uncomfortable. A lot of the other stuff I think we feel a lot more comfortable with because we're actually in the grinds with it. But that one where we haven't even started to put our arms around it beyond, maybe an initial set of inputs, which I think is also a checkoff we should take credit for.
Yes, Ron.
So speaking of dates, isn't it best to at least say we're going to complete it by? If we go into the summertime and doing surveys in the summertime, that's not going to be a good time.
No,
right.
I agree. We have an opportunity to get it done before the summer.
Okay.
Or if the process, we got lots of people with lots of opinions. Yep. When we did this with Park, it took a lot longer than we expected, but we want to get it right. Yep. So if that process takes us longer, we're not going to do a survey in July. We're not going to do a survey in August. Okay. We'll come back in early September and kick it off then. So we'll see how it goes and try and get it done before the summer.
Yeah.
But I think if the process needs longer, 2 more months isn't going to make or break a difference.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else want to weigh in on the? Okay, Mark.
So just a quick comment, since we're kind of not quite designing the slides, but suggesting contents. Maybe we just talked about this, I'm calling it benchmarking. You might have a different name for it, John, but we just created a list, I think, of 21 different senior centers that the members are planning to visit in the next 2 weeks. Excuse me, the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Right.
But I think that's a very significant piece of it also. And the notion that some are community centers and some are senior only centers. And we have a questionnaire, a standardized questionnaire that we're using. So I think that's a big chunk of content that's worth talking about as well.
Yes.
I already have the slide designed in my head, Mark.
Ron, you go.
I got pictures of all the senior centers coming in from all the different communities. So
but okay. Anyone else? Anything else? I see no other hands. Okay. If anybody has, actually has more detailed information as far as, or more detailed input as far as slides, I certainly would, welcome it. And I'm sure.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Sorry. Again, I'm sensitive. I'm trying to be sensitive to the open meeting stuff, but if you and Ron put together a draft of these, can you send it out for us to then give input back directly, not out to the whole group, but back to you and Ron directly, so that we can look at this. When is our next meeting? Do we have another meeting before the
30th? No.
The 22nd?
No, it's not. No. Oh, no, we don't have another meeting before the 22nd. The select board meeting.
So John, okay. I don't think we can do that way. There could be a third person that would still be under quorum that could take a look at the slides. Also, Jean and Kevin can certainly be looking at them. That's not a problem at all. But going to everybody's outside of an agenda is not kosher.
Okay.
But people could send something to me, right, without me then sending it back out. I'm just looking for, for assistance. I'm sure Ron and I will, handle it, but okay. I see silence.
I mean, I'm happy to give input, and I'm thinking about the same thing you guys are thinking about. What do these slides look like? What's the outline of this? I mean, short of trying to do that together, I think just seeing it and providing feedback is the best way to do that. And unfortunately, that if that violates open meeting law, then we are not going to be able to do that. So we're going to have to leave that as an action for you guys to kind of deal with directly. Unless there's some other suggestions on how to do that.
Okay. I don't see anybody raising their hand on that. So, okay, we will proceed to prepare for the select board meeting. And is there any business that wasn't anticipated that anybody has to bring before the committee before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Mark?
Just quickly, we've talked about, so the presentation of the select board meeting, we talked also about to town meeting, but we haven't really taken any steps that would accomplish that. Whatever the deadline is from the town moderator is going to be around the corner. So it may be that once we find out what that is, it may either require another meeting or it may require taking the select board presentation and using that.
Okay.
But I hopefully I'll hear back from Alan pretty quickly and I can offer feedback.
Okay. John Sasso.
quick question, Mark. So we don't know yet whether he's willing to do a presentation or if he just wants a written report, correct?
Correct. We don't yet.
So what I was going to offer is if the answer is it's a written report, one of the things I was thinking is that kind of in line with what Wilmington did as one of their summary status updates, we could take the presentation and the information we have and put it together in kind of a one-pager kind of status update, and I'd be happy to kind of take a stab at that once we have exactly what it is we want to say. And then I can certainly turn that into something pretty quickly that we could use as a town meeting report. But if we're going to do a presentation, then I would just suggest, let's just use the same thing that we present to the select board, because we're not really going to have a whole lot of opportunity to make much changes to that between now and the time we need to get it in.
Appreciate the offer, John. Ron?
Oh, Mark, just on a process of town meeting laws. So John and I can't communicate on putting the presentation together?
We can. Two people.
Okay.
You can, and actually you can consult with a third member.
Okay, so why can't I call John?
But that's the end. You can't go beyond 3 members.
Okay.
Right? Because we're a group of 7, a quorum is 4.
Okay.
So it's okay to talk to a maximum of 3, and then you can't serially communicate. You can't then have one person reach out to another. 3 is it. So if 2 of you are working on it, you could pick a third.
Is everyone okay with that?
I was actually going to suggest that you, Ron, and John O'Neill work with Mark on the presentation, only because Mark could give you the guidance on what exactly
looks like. Yeah.
Select board really should want to see. My only offer to help at the end was once you do get that presentation, again, Mark, Mark or Jean can tell me if this is outside the bounds, but if you sent me the presentation, I could then transform it into a one-pager PDF with other things and pictures and information. But if that goes beyond the scope of this, then I guess I won't be able to do that.
I think once it's prepared and for the select board, I think that that's a document. Then
once you present it to the select board, it then becomes public.
Right.
I can do anything I want with it. So basically.
But the packet goes out on the 17th.
Okay. So yeah, I think once you guys get it together and the 3 of you guys get it comfortable, then, by hook or by crook, get it to me. And if I have to turn it into a PDF quickly, I can do that.
Yeah. So the select board packet goes out on St. Patrick's Day, which is next week, a week from tomorrow.
So just to be clear, the goal should be to have it in the packet, this presentation, the slides in that packet. So it's got to be done by that morning latest. Better even is Wednesday night.
John, Mark, do we have a template that we use or something to help move this along? Is there a town template that you use or anything? No, just blank or whatever, however we want it.
Whatever you want. I blank. I probably could use a drop more color than blank.
Okay. Yeah. No, obviously. I just didn't know if there was a template everyone used.
No, everyone pretty much uses their own.
Okay.
All right. And as far as number of slides and the actual physical presentation of the slides, is that all set up there? In other words, I assume other people are going to be using slide presentations that evening.
Oh, we'll just, so number 1, it'll be in the packet. And number 2, we'll send it electronically to Jackie Laverde, and she'll have it available to use during the meeting. No problem. And Jackie will run it. You'll just be able to say to her, next slide, please. And she'll move to the next slide.
And you were saying a few, 4 or 5 slides? What was...
I think that, a handful or just slightly more is good. I think that there's probably 10 minutes available.
Okay.
So I'd gauge it by that, and hopefully there'll be a few questions from board members.
All right. Okay.
I have faith in Ron, John, not to worry.
I just need his content and I could pretty it up.
I'm happy to participate as the third if you want, or not. You guys can
Thanks,
decide
Mark.
how it's going.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, I now will, if there's no other business, let me just check one more time.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been adjourned. Do I see a second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Now we'll take a roll call vote. So John Parsons,
Yes.
Ron Assini,
Yes.
Nora Bucco,
Yes.
Michael Colton,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John O'Neill, yes. So thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Nice
Good
job,
evening,
John.
everyone.
Good meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.